All right, you guys, welcome to the video. We are here with the Warriors Mavs post game live. We're going to be doing more of these throughout the season, so make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what y'all think about the game. We got my guy Barrett and Trey here. We're going to give you guys our take. We're going to start off doing a reaction, and then we'll do a post game breakdown, kind of give some of our takes, and then go through some of the other highlights from the game. So, as y'all know, this is Klay's return game, very high emotional intensity game. I really didn't know what to expect. Like, I knew that they were going to be competitive, right? I didn't think it was going to be anyone taking things easy. But what were you guys like expecting coming into this game? Before we get to the reaction, like, what was your anything you guys were looking out for?
If you want to go first, you want me to start these off?
It doesn't make me no difference. Go ahead.
Uh, I'll say for myself, I definitely expected it to be at a intense game, a very high emotional game, just with the fact that Clay is coming back, and obviously with all of the commotion and the talk that went around with how the team was feeling when he was there. Sorry, I don't know if I guess I'm back. So, yeah, in short, I was expecting it to be a very intense game, a very emotional game. Both teams to play hard for multiple reasons. One, Clay, making his return to the franchise, there's going to be a lot of emotion there. I knew the fans were going to be really invested into it. Um, so yeah, just with how the team handled him and kind of his position leaving the team and just what that happened throughout the course of the offseason, I knew there was a lot of a lot of emotional intensity there. So I expected this game to be physical and intense. Um, and also with both of these teams, Dallas coming off the year they had last year and then being able to make it all the way to the finals, which I don't think many people expected them to. Um, they definitely have a lot of stock in their team, and they're definitely trying to compete for playoff contention again, like they did last year. They still have Luka and Kyrie, so there's expectations for them, so they're trying to fulfill that. And Golden State has come off to a great start that I don't think any of us expected them to have this year. So with them
Uh,
having a 8-2 record, I believe, right now throughout the season,
now it's 9-2.
they 9-2, yeah. After this win, there's a lot of expectation starting to build up with them being the franchise and their history, and yeah, just the expectations of both these teams, coming in expecting to win, expecting to do something this season. Both teams are playing well. The Warriors are playing really well, so there's a lot at stake for these teams so far with how they played in this season. There's a lot of forward looking and forward thinking in terms of playoff hopes and playoff contention. So I expected it to be an intense game, and it felt like it was. It felt like a playoff game. It felt like a very competitive game. So it delivered pretty much in terms of the atmosphere. It delivered exactly what I was expecting it to. And it was entertaining, and it was a good, hard fought basketball game. Great defense being played, great offense shown by the star players. Steph obviously did his thing. He had his awesome moments in the
Yeah,
fourth quarter. Luka played pretty well. I didn't see the numbers yet at the box score, but I think Luka played pretty well. Kyrie had his moments, so and obviously it was good to see Klay come back to where where his home is, honestly. So it was a great game. It was a hard fought game, and it was good basketball.
yeah, being on the other side of those Clay shots felt really, really weird. And I was like, wow, okay, this is what, you know, other fans have felt like all these years, like Clay just hit one right here. And we left him open so many times. I'm just like, how? Like I look, I have to look at the lineups again, but the Warriors have gotten a lot better with like not leaving the wide open threes. But man, Clay, he still got it. He still got it. I think he played pretty good. I do feel like his emotions were pretty like tame. Like it didn't seem like he was playing emotional. He didn't get baited into, taking any bad shots or anything. What I will say, like, the problem with Clay when he was on the Warriors was like the way the team was constructed, he was being asked to do more than like he really should be at this point. Like it caused him to try to like create a lot of shots off the dribble. But when he's playing with the Mavs, he doesn't really have that issue anymore, which is why I think he's way better this year, because they're not putting like the decision making in his hands. You know, he doesn't have to handle the ball, and I feel like, you know, he's playing like the perfect role for this point in his career. I'm gonna keep playing it, but Trey, what did you think?
I think probably about similar. I know it's gonna be a highly fought game. I mean, these are still two of the top contenders in the West. Uh, Especially with it being Clay's return, you kind of knew like the stakes were high, the tension was a little bit thick. But by the end of the day, it's two competitive teams. I knew that if the Warriors had to come down to it, it was gonna have to be because of Steph.
Yep.
Steph was gonna have to be the guy who took the game over. He had to be the guy who won the game, or he had to be the guy who helped lead them to the win. Um, I think that his supporting cast did what they needed to do, which was when you find an open man, when you find him open, you got to give him a ball. Doesn't matter what situation you're in, your offense, you live and die by Steph Curry. Um, they took care of business. Buddy came off the bench.
He was very effective, like in the exact right spots. Like he played perfectly.
He had a great game. Jonathan Kaminga continuously showing on why he deserves to have a very decent contract coming up very soon. Draymond had one of his probably definitely
Prime Draymond. We definitely got prime Draymond tonight. Like his stats are not going to show it. We'll get into the stats, but this is one of those games where there were so many players that you cannot look at their stat line and tell how good of a game they had. We'll get into it because I have the NBA posted the last 5 minutes of the game, the full last 5 minutes. So we'll watch that to see like in detail, because there was a lot of defensive possessions down the stretch where it was like Draymond completely led that, but as a team, their team defense, we'll get into this a little later, they're looking like 2022 level. And mind you, Kyle Anderson didn't play tonight, and Kyle Anderson has been one of their better defenders and shot makers. So just think about that. They won this game without Kyle Anderson. You know, that kind of messed up the rotation. Steve ended up playing Looney in some spots where you probably wouldn't want him, but he ended up finding out the rotations down the stretch. So after we get out of this third quarter highlight, we'll kind of look at the fourth quarter, because things really started turning up once Steph got back into the game. There was a bench rotation that we had that we absolutely got cooked. Like we were building a lead, and then our bench came in, wasn't able to do anything. But for the Warriors, Steve Kerr is figuring out that solid 9-man rotation. Like we do still have a 12, 13-man rotation at times, but he's figuring out what spots to put these guys in. And I think him going back to Jonathan Kaminga was really big, because Kaminga was absolutely cooking the Mavs. His shot selection, he hit a couple threes, if I'm not mistaken. He was getting to the rim. The Mavs really didn't have an answer for Kaminga out here. So when he put him back in, the game was able to turn, and we're able to start getting a little momentum for Steph. Now, I do have some notes on all of these guys, but we'll kind of get into that when we look at the stats. Podziemski, you see some of the holes in his game in a game like this. I feel like he's still a good team player. Like he's not a negative, right? He's leading the team in plus minus still, but at the same time, this kind of shows you that he has a lot more room to go in terms of like creating his own offense. What I will say, he's a gamer, and he's gonna hit those shots. You know, and I think he needs to be a little bit more aggressive, although I understand he wants to play make. Him finding that balance between playmaking and finding his own spots, I think he'll get there. He's still figuring out his game. But Luka and Kyrie, they were amazing. I mean, Luka did Luka things. They were getting bailed out by the free throws, though. I will say that. The refs were definitely giving them the whistle, but at the same time, the Warriors weren't hitting their free throws, which we'll get into that. That could be a problem down the road. But it started getting real tight right here around the fourth quarter. Like if you look at this lineup they have out here, right? You got Draymond, Moody, Steph. You know, this is when Steph first came back in the game. So we're gonna watch the. I'm gonna pull this up right quick. This is the last 5 minutes of the game, so we can see a little more in depth. But let's like check this out, and because this is where the defense started picking up. The Warriors defense was showing signs throughout the game, but in this fourth quarter, in the last few minutes, this right here is where the game got tight. I felt like we could have went down right here. Old Warriors, last year Warriors would have started going down. Would a team start coming back and getting the momentum in their favor? But then it was like, okay, the announcers were saying Steph Curry hasn't scored in the fourth quarter. You know, he came in around the 9 or 8 minute mark. They're like, he hasn't scored. And we're like, hey, we need Steph. The lineup I had a problem with. So we had Steph, Wiggins, Draymond, Looney, and Buddy. Okay, Steph and Buddy are shooters, but to me, I was like, Steve, please don't close the game with this lineup. I was praying. I was like, we're gonna get absolutely roasted. Steph and Buddy don't have much space to work with, right? And then there's no one out here that was aggressive. So I was like, can we please get Kuminga back in here? I don't know how you want to rotate it. Wiggins does need to stay out here to defend, but I'm like, one of these dudes is gonna have to come out. And I think he inserted Melton and Kuminga somewhere in here. I think he took Buddy out at some point in exchange for defense for Melton.
I will also say that Andrew Wiggins, yes, he still has the capabilities of being a solid defender, but when you're looking for a scoring outburst, he's not the guy you look for anymore.
He's not.
This isn't the same guy that you first got coming out of Minnesota. This isn't. You're kind of there as he's just a defensive support. He's gonna be there for mainly defensive lineups, but having him play 34 plus minutes, I mean,
we needed it. We needed it though. He's not the second. He's not a second option. He never was.
He's not.
That's the problem. We need another second option.
And that's the thing about it is like we're seeing it now with Kuminga. We're seeing with Kuminga where when he's starting to get playing time, he's putting up numbers. He's getting buckets. He's a consistent player. He's been a guy who you're gonna see he's either gonna be second or third in top scoring. And whenever you're making him come off the bench and you're still giving him an limited role and you're not letting him show out, like Kuminga is one contract away. Like, I believe this is the contract that he can technically be called a quote unquote veteran.
Yeah, so, year 5. Yeah.
Yeah. Around this time is where you can start saying that you're a veteran.
But he's not truly a veteran. Like, if you look at the minutes, he's a year 4 player, but he's not a real year 4 player.
He's not. He's in that middle range, but I just feel like for Steve, you're seeing already success with Kuminga. Why not try and bring that same success to like Moses Moody? We've been all vouching for him to do that. It's like now it's like what type of lineups do you want to get out? Like, I like it, the fact that you're getting Moody out there, but I need to see a little bit more.
Yeah, I do think we could see some more Moody. I think the rotations right now is tough. I think GP2 might have got injured because he only played 7 minutes and didn't come back out. And they definitely would have had him out there if he was available. So I think maybe the thing is like Melton and GP2 are both injury prone. They're both good at like pretty much the same things. I do think Melton's a little bit better overall because he can score, handle the ball a little bit more playmaking, right? But it's almost like they have them as backup for each other. And I think when one is out, Moody will get a few more minutes. I have seen Steve's sneak in Lindy Waters in there, which he is an underrated pick. Y'all got to watch out for Lindy Waters. He's even played Lindy Waters over Moody. So it's like, but Moody got his contract, so I think things will be more secure. Like, he'll get his minutes because Steven knows he can count on him. When Moody came in, his stat line might not show it, but the energy he had made a difference, like scrapping for the ball, snatching rebounds, blocking shots. Like, we'll get into his stats a little later, but I just want to highlight this play right here. So we're gonna get into this a little later on Luka with the defense. Okay, I love Luka. He's a very talented player. He is. Okay, but look at how Steph guards Luka on this possession. 4 minutes left in the game. The Warriors are down 7. Steph Curry doesn't ask for a switch on Luka. Steph having the effort on defense. And we're going to see the play at the end of the game where Luka was on Steph. I'm absolutely frying him because Steph is smaller than you, Luka.
That's called accepting responsibility right there.
Steph is smaller than you, right? There's no way. Like, you're telling me you can't have quick hands. I know Luka has IQ. You're telling me you can't at least try to get it still. We'll get into it. I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but that play right there, your best player on the team, even if he's not the best defender, being willing to defend changes the effort of everyone else around. How are you going to hold your teammates to account when you are running from defensive possessions, Luka?
Here's the funny.
If you look at, he started playing that intense defense and was getting caught fouls for it. Like, because it's like they have this reputation of, oh, he steals, so he's reaching a lot. So they would try to call all that physical defense reaching, but it's like over the years they start allowing him to be physical. Maybe he built his reputation. Maybe that's what changed with the refs allowing him to actually be intense. Maybe he got more respect on the defensive end over the years to where they're like, okay, you actually are playing hard defense. You're not just reaching, because he's been like this, but it would get called bad defense because he's getting fouls, right? So it's like putting the other team in the bonus. So that's, to me, why the average person wasn't seeing how intense he was on defense since then, because it was like
I feel like that changed after the 2022 finals, because if you go
yeah,
back and remember his performance in the 22 finals,
for the playoffs.
Yeah, for the playoffs in general, a lot of the flowers that were given to him in terms of how he played throughout that entire playoff run, a lot of that came on his defensive effort.
Yep.
He was handling one-on-one matchups pretty decently. Like, he wasn't getting beat, or he wasn't getting just manhandled like he was early in his career. Like, he actually was holding his own and disrupting offenses and getting strips and attacking the ball and shuffling and siding with offensive players. Like, he was sticking with them. Like, he played like exceptional defense in that entire playoff run, let alone what he did in the finals against that Boston Celtics team. Like, I still remember, I remember to this day, like, the treatment that he got that offseason and going into that next season, like how people talked about him. They were like, bro, Steph's defense. And I was like, yeah, you only say that because of what he did in the playoffs last year.
Mm-hmm.
He slowly developed that over the course of his career, because he's always, I've always maintained that Steph has always been an above average defender. I mean, the dude led the league in steals, what was it, twice, back when it was like 2014 or like 2015, 2016, maybe, like somewhere in between those years. And that was back when he was competing against the likes of Paul George and Chris Paul for the steals title. Like, those are elite defenders that he's going up against. But he's always been a great defender in terms of off-ball defense, playing the passing lanes, getting strips, getting steals, like just manipulating the opposing team's offense with his own defensive ability off the ball. He's always been a great off the ball defender, but he now, over time, him adding that on-ball defense to his ability, that just completely separated him. Like,
Yeah,
he's been doing that throughout the course of his career, but it started to peak, and but it started to show its face that 2021, 2022 season, and that's when it got recognized. And now
yeah,
he still upholds that same standard today. Like, he still plays that well defensively, and people act like he's been doing this forever. And I'm just like, well, you guys weren't saying that years ago.
yeah. They weren't paying.
We'll let it slide.
They weren't paying attention because it's relative, right? Like, if you have Andre Iguodala, Draymond, Andrew Bogut, I mean, just think of all the defense. Yeah, it's like, of course, next to them, he's the weakest defender. Like, of course, the other team's gonna pick on him, and because of his size. But what I've heard multiple former players say is Steph Curry is strong as hell. Like, he is very, very, very strong. Like, so we see that on the offensive end, with him being able to use his body and use his size. Like, I feel like he's way more methodical with like using his size and strength against the opponents. I mean, I've seen Steph knock down dudes that are like 7 feet before. Like, it's insane. So, I mean, I just want to like highlight that. There's a play right here, I think right after this. That's number one. So Like, what was the point of even doing this? It was too late to even attempt this. Like, look at the, like, you have to know he's trying to get behind Draymond, right? And it's like, you're really that's like the, I guess the defensive strategy, you're that serious about not wanting Luka on Steph that you will literally give up a shot right here just to get Gafford to, like, I don't know. This is an issue for them. I don't
ever want to hear anybody ever say that Luka right now is better than peak James Harden in Houston for this exact reason. For other reasons too that I can talk about later, because me and Ciara already talked about it before we started doing this recording. But for this reason right here, I don't ever.
what did he do? What just happened? Like, I just want to go, like, I'm trying to process what is the logic. He's not even trying. Like, you just let him run past. There's no one there to protect the rim. Like, what are we doing? So it's like, what were they trying to do? Switch again? Like, I don't know. What is this? I'm really trying to defensively understand what was the logic here.
That was also a smart play call. I don't know if that was a play call by Steve or if that's just how the guys on the court just ran the offensive motion. But that was smart. That was smart of them to, who is that, Wiggins? Yeah, that was smart of them to get Wiggins to basically do a flare down the baseline so that he could drag, because Wiggins' defender is the help side defender in this situation. He's the lowest man on the court. So off of that Steph drive, his responsibility is the help man on that rotation to cover for the basket. But it was smart of them to get Wiggins to essentially roll that fade down the baseline, because he's going into a covered spot where, who's that in the corner? Is that
and he was going to be open too. And he was going to be open about getting the matchup he wanted to get. What matchup y'all think he was talking about? I have a feeling I know which one he was talking about. Because it's like, every time he saw Luka, he saw food. And then when Luka gave when Luka gave this up, I was like, I know they're not about to switch. I know they're not about to let Derek Lively guard Steph. We have seen what Steph does to bigs his whole career. And you would rather have Derek Lively try to guard Steph on the perimeter than just let Luka stick on him. And look at how willingly he's giving it up. Like, he's just like, what you gonna do? Like, guard Draymond on three? Like, what are you doing, Luka? What are you gonna do? Oh, you're just directing defense. You're directing traffic. Oh yeah, that's really gonna do something, bro. Like, down the stretch, that's the problem. Like, I don't know if a playoff game. It actually felt like a playoff game, y'all. That was insane.
The intensity was there for sure.
So we're gonna go through the stats right quick, and then I got a couple little clips and highlights from everything. So we'll start with the Mavs. So Klay had a cool 22 points. He did his job as far as I'm concerned. I mean, he's not
Klay showed up.
the second. Yeah, he did his job. I mean, I don't know what else you could really ask. 41% from the field, 6 for 12 from 3, 2 free throws, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. I mean, yeah, what more could you really ask? Daniel Gafford really hurt us. Gafford and Lively. Teams that have bigs, you know, rim running bigs are just that's pretty much our nightmare. We don't really have any personnel to really handle that. That's why I feel like the piece this team is missing is either a second star, but if this is gonna be a team like just depth, we do need a big, like an actual big, preferably one that can shoot, but those are very hard to find. You know, if we could find one that could shoot a 3-2, that would be cool. Me and Barrett went through like a few names. Like, I don't know who realistically we could get where the salaries match.
I listed like 8 or 9 guys.
Yo, anyone that's actually a big, because as far as I know, this team doesn't have one player over 6'9" on the roster, and I don't know. We probably got to be the only team with that. Like,
that's a problem, especially in the Western Conference era.
Yeah,
that's a problem.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what we're missing. The Warriors were looking for that in the offseason. But Kyrie, 21 points, 61% from the field, 33% from 3. He was 1 for 3 from 3. Let's see, 80% from the free throw line, 3 rebounds, 6 assists, 5 turnovers. The Warriors defense, like, honestly, there should be a defensive highlight reel from this game because their defense was insane. So many blocks, deflections, steals. And I want to see, I don't know if they have that stat, but I would love to see the points off of turnovers because that, I feel like if there is a stat for that, the Warriors probably cooked them in that stat because every single time the Mavs tried to cook something up, the Warriors defense just completely shut that down. So you got 5 turnovers from Luka and 5 from Kyrie. Not ideal. Luka had 31 points, 48% from the field, 13 for 27, 2 for 10 from 3. 2 for 10 from 3. Hey, I'm not gonna say that he shouldn't shoot the shots, but I am gonna say I do think the offense around Luka, he does have a heliocentric offensive style. The offense revolves around him, right? But I think at a certain point, the Mavs are gonna have to try to change it up a little bit, and I do think Luka needs to play off ball more. I know he doesn't want to do that, and I know he's your primary ball handler, but something has to give, like, because to me, Luka just chucking shots, that's just not it, bro. That's just not it. Especially when you have the personnel. What's your excuse? You have Klay now. You have Kyrie. What else do you need? Like, do they need another piece? I don't know. Maybe their rotation's too short. I don't know. It looks like they have a few dudes who are DNP. Maxi Kleber's gone. Morris, I don't know what's up with that. Maybe they're missing something else. Maybe they're missing another piece. I mean, I still think they're going to be like really good. Spencer Dinwiddie didn't give anything. Maybe that's the problem. I'm sure they're not expecting him to have 0 points in the game. How many minutes did he play? 11 minutes. Yeah, that's the problem right there. Maybe they get a replacement for him. I mean, I think he's pretty decent, but they need some other contributor or like to change the offense or both potentially. So that's pretty much it for them. Let's see what their rebounds. They had 40 rebounds, 26 assists, 6 steals, 1 block. Now let's look at the Warriors stats on the other end. Warriors had 7 blocks and 13 steals. And 10 of those 13 came from Luka and Kyrie alone. The Warriors perimeter defenders, they're good on that. GP2, Wiggins, they hold it down. And then on top of that, Melton is, I haven't watched Melton much, but he is a really good player. The only problem with him is his back injuries. The Warriors had 50 rebounds, so they out rebounded them. With the Warriors getting 18 offensive rebounds to the 8 from the Mavs. So they definitely held it down. Trace Jackson with 5 offensive rebounds. Looney with 9 offensive rebounds. 9 out of his 11 rebounds are offensive. Looney is still one of the best rebounders in the league. And to me, I always look at like defensive rebounds, those stats can be inflated just off of how many threes people are taking. But to me, to see who's really like actually good at rebounding, you narrow it down to the offensive rebounds because you have to fight for those a lot more. And they can give you extra possessions. So to me, I weigh the offensive rebounds a little bit more. And in that department, Looney's still one of the best in the league. I have to highlight, obviously, Steph Curry, 37 points in 35, a little under 35 minutes, 51.9% from the field, 14 for 27 overall, 5 for 12 from 3. That's 42%, 4 for 5 from free throws, 6 rebounds, 9 assists, 1 steal, 2 blocks. 2 blocks. I'm telling y'all, the defensive intensity was crazy. Draymond, probably I would have to give him second best player of the game because purely off of his impact, right? He had 11 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. I mean, he actually put on a clinic, and mind you, only having 2 personal fouls, he was getting all ball on those blocks. And I don't know if there's a stat for deflections, but the amount of deflections they had on top of the steals and blocks were insane, which I do believe they're leading the league in deflections. That's huge, especially when you're playing undersized, to be able to out rebound teams while playing small, right? It's not sustainable, but in certain matchups, they can do it. We saw it even with the Memphis Grizzlies series, right? that's a team we probably should have lost the rebounding battle to, or multiple teams throughout that run to the finals in 2022. We were playing extremely small, but the rebounding effort, right, and the defense is what allowed us to compete with those other teams. Can we do it again? I do still feel like we're missing one or two other pieces to actually compete for a chip, but I definitely think we can crush some other teams' championship hopes. Like, we're definitely gonna, somebody that should be a contender, I think the worst is gonna beat them and snatch their hopes of a championship away from them. I do think they can do that as of right now, as they're built. Gotta give also credit to Jonathan Kuminga. 16 points in 27 minutes, 54% from the field, 2 for 5 from 3. Those threes that he hit were very crucial. Free throws still need work. 2 offensive rebounds, 3 defensive rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. And then, of course, we have to get to DeAnthony Melton and then Buddy Hield. I mean, as role players, they did their job. Their stats don't do justice because the spots where they were making the threes were crucial. I mean, like, keeping us in the game, extending the lead a little bit. Buddy Hield is just so good. Like, okay, I'm fanned out about Buddy Hield. Like, he was 2 for 8 from 3. I don't care. Those 2 threes he hit were just the timing was impeccable. So, you know, I haven't seen him much in the playoffs, but that does make me feel like in these high intensity moments, Buddy is showing up. Like, he's not scared of the moment. That's the one thing about him that makes me kind of excited to see him in the playoffs, because he doesn't seem to shy away from the moment, right? In those other shots he was hitting outside the threes, the layups, the handles, you know, his handles are way better than I would have thought they are, and his ability to finish at the rim, very, very impressive. And he had 2 steals as well. So for a guy that's probably like one of the weaker defenders on the team, to get 2 steals really does help a lot. And then as for DeAnthony Melton, he was 2 for 6 from 3, but those 2 threes he hit were very high intensity. He also had 1 offensive rebound, 3 defensive rebounds, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal. That is about as good as it's gonna get. And I got to shout out my guy Moody. He only had a little under 12 minutes, 4 points, but he hit his 2 free throws, 2 rebounds, and then he had 2 blocks. So, you know, that's the type of guys where it's like you really can't look at the stat line and get the full picture. And mind y'all, Kyle Anderson wasn't even playing. I think he was injured. And Kyle Anderson is one of our better scorers and defenders on the team. I don't know what he's averaging this season, but he's a guy that can also hit a 3-2. So imagine this game was this intense, right? And we didn't even have Kyle Anderson on the team. And he's a pretty significant contributor on this team. So that's all the stats. Did anything stand out to you guys before I get to some of these little highlights?
Hey, for me personally, in terms of just what the box score was for this game, I was surprised. I was a little surprised that Buddy's his percentage from the arc for the game.
It didn't feel like it.
It didn't feel like he shot 2 for 8. I'll be honest with you, because I think I was a little fixated on just what he was doing, just on the ball, like just throughout the entire course of the game. You know, he had a couple of good plays here and there where he kind of created something in transition or in the half court. Because he still helped him out like in key crucial moments throughout the game, especially like towards like, you know, the more stressful moments like in the third and fourth quarter. So excuse me. So I was a little shocked that he shot that poorly from 3. It didn't feel like he shot that poor, but you know, it just goes to show. Look, I've been saying this for, you know, I'm gonna keep it short because I ranted to Ciara about this before we even got on this recording and before we did this post game reaction while we were watching the game is when I said this. But I've been following Buddy Hield since he was in college. I watched him when he was at Alabama. I watched him when he got drafted to New Orleans. I watched him when he went to Sacramento. I watched him when he got traded to Indiana. I watched him when he got traded to Philadelphia, and I'm still watching him when he's traded to Golden State. And I've been saying this for forever. Buddy Hield is a baller. Okay, he's a hooper. He is not restricted to the confines of just being labeled as a shooter. I know that's what the public labels him as. I know that's what the basketball community and discourse labels him as. But for those of us that watch the game and study the game, and understand the game. If you watch Buddy Hield play, you know he's more than just a shooter. He's a he truly is a naturally gifted and naturally talented offensive player. He can score. He can shoot. Yes, he can shoot, but he can score. He can create on the ball. He has actually a really solid handle for a guy at the shooting guard position. He can create for himself and for others. Sneaky good finisher. He's savvy on the offensive side of the court. Doesn't really force a whole lot of bad stuff unless it's like late in the shot clock and he just to put something up. But he doesn't force a whole lot of bad shots. He kind of plays within the rhythm of within the rhythm of the game, within the flow of the game. Um, I've always felt like he has been given the CJ McCollum treatment. Steve still needs to kind of figure out what the hell he's doing with half of these rotations, because I completely agree with Ciara. There are times where he just throws guys out there and I'm just like, okay, like X's and O's wise, basketball wise, this makes zero fucking sense. But we'll see what happens. Like that's half of the time. But I give him a lot of credit for playing all 12 guys as much as he's been playing. He's been playing them, giving them minutes, giving them opportunities throughout the season so far to get their reps in, to get their moments in games in real time, to find their rhythms and find their touch for the game, so that way later on in the season and potentially the playoffs they can be counted on more, and they can be expected to execute more because they've had those reps and that time to just get the feel of the game in. So in terms of Dallas, defensively, I feel like they need to really look at things. If we're going to call out names here, I think they need to definitely hold their their stars, STARS, their stars accountable. For playing on both ends of the court. I'm gonna give Luka like a little bit of grace, simply because playing with any kind of injury, it just makes it hard to play, right? It makes it hard to be 100% and to give your full best on the court. It just does every single time. And I think he's dealing with a leg injury. I think it's like a hamstring or some kind of muscle. I don't know if it's a calf or a hamstring, but some kind of muscle injury to his leg. So I give him a little bit of grace, just a little bit, but not enough to completely excuse him for how he played tonight defensively, because that's been his whole career. Luka's whole career, he's been a very subpar, lackluster, just slouch of a defender. He's been like that his whole career. He doesn't provide anything defensively. He doesn't give effort defensively, let alone when he does, he doesn't have the ability to really provide anything, period. The most he can do, or the most he can give you, is stick to a guy's hip and play a guy's body and just play the line drive or play the closeout, running closeout position on a 3-point shot to force a guy to drive. The only thing he can do is basically buy time for his help defense or for his defensive rotation to kick in, so that way they can begin defensive rotations and execute on switches and account for each other there. That's the only way he can provide on defense, is just to slow the guy down, just to make him take an extra dribble or two, to make him take extra steps, so that way it gives the defense time to set up and to start pre-rotating and get into their rotations. It's the only thing he can do. But in terms of being able to stop somebody or make life harder for somebody as an isolated defender, he has nothing to offer there. And that's something that if he wants to elevate his game, and if he wants a chance at winning a title and, contending for championships like consistently, and for last year to not be a fluke, and hell, even boost himself in the MVP discussions, right? Like just to boost his own individual stock as a player, he has to at some point take accountability for defense, like for his own defensive effort. He has to get better. He has to watch film. He needs to start working. He needs to start getting in the gym and getting reps in and getting work in on the defensive side of the court. Hell, if I'm him, I'm guarding Kyrie every single practice, and I'm guarding the best player, no matter who we play, the best perimeter player, every single night, just to force myself to have to learn to play defense and to learn, like it's trial by fire. You put diamonds under heavy pressure, and they come out in perfect shape. You put gold in the fire, and all of the dirt and all the grit and grime come out of it, and it's pure. It's just trial by fire at this point with Luka, because he's too far in his career for him to develop himself as a defender just with practice and doing it outside of the season. Like it's going to come through the off season and in the season. It's going to be a trial by fire for this guy if he wants to get better. Let alone that's not accounting for the holes and the areas that he needs to work on the offensive side of the court. He's a horrible off-ball player. He doesn't provide anything off the ball. He doesn't move. He doesn't set screens. He doesn't flow in the rotation. He will literally just stand there, and he will just be an idol for the entire possession unless the ball's in his hands. And that is just not conducive to winning a basketball game. It's just not. It at least not for the standards of which he holds himself to, right, to contend for championships. Last year will 1000% be a fluke season for them if he does not, at least if you're not gonna work on yourself as a defender and try to build yourself and grow as a defender. If you're not going to do that, at least learn how to play off the ball. At least learn how to come off some down pin downs, down screen actions, coming off of coming off of twin pick and roll actions off the corner, coming off of pick PNRs at the top, to the top of the key, catching and shooting, cutting to the basket, posting up, getting inside positioning, trying to get low post matchups, especially because you have guards that are guarding you most of the time. So you have guys that are 6'3", 6'5" guarding you. You're bigger than them. Taking advantage of mismatches, like that kind of stuff. He just doesn't do. Unless the ball's in his hands, he's practically ineffective. So until he starts working on those weak points in this game, he'll never reach the ceiling that he can reach, and that team will never ever be able to contend for a championship truly until he maximizes his ability in those areas. It's just not going to happen. So I had to throw that out there because I've heard too many times. I've heard all these people who don't understand. They just don't understand the game. They watch highlights and they think they know basketball. All these people that say he's better than prime James Harden and that he's a better overall player than prime James Harden. It's just one of the most folly and one of the most asinine, ridiculous, idiotic, dumb things I've ever heard in my life. It just is, because they're comparing Luka to a guy that actually could play defense, was actually a good defender when he needed to be a defender and had to play defense, was shutting down bigs in the paint, was guarding some of the best guards, was getting strips and getting steals, was a good athlete, like a guy that on the offensive side of the ball could play off the ball, could shoot, catch and shoot, would move at least a little bit off the ball more than this guy does. Like it's the most statement I've heard in a while. I hate it. So until that happens, he's never gonna maximize his playing ability. But yeah, for Dallas, I feel like defensively they need to work on themselves. There was a lot of sloppiness. There was a lot of late rotations. There were a lot of different actions and motions that happened that they felt for, and that in terms of what Golden State was running offensively within the scheme, setting up guys, getting guys to move, like that play that I mentioned, where they had Andrew basically run that fade out going through the middle of the lane, cutting out to the weak side corner. Even though they had a man down there, they knew that the play wasn't designated for the ball to come out of Steph's hands. They just ran that motion to clear out the lane so that they could force the help side defender, the low man, to be as far back as they can. They had Andrew motion all the way out. He even did a 180 and came back out to the wing with it, just in case if his defender followed him that far by chance, which he didn't. But they got him as far as they could. Steph had a wide open lane. Obviously, Luka's lunch meat, so he got right by him. The lane was wide open. They had Buddy Hield, I think, in the strong side corner. You can't leave him. So at that point, it's just pick your poison, and they chose to just let Steph have the wide open lane to the basket. So, a lot of things like that, like not reading what the offense is trying to set up, not reading what the offense's motion is trying to create, defensively, they need some work. They need to they need to watch film. They need to study some film, and they need to break it down at the very basic levels and go from there and develop it. And they need to work on their defensive schemes in terms of 5-on-5 motion in the half court defensively. That's something that they're not good at. They weren't good at it last year. They're not good at it this year still. So in terms of what I'm looking at for the future, that's kind of what I'm looking at for both teams. And but like I said, it was a really really entertaining game. It was a really hard fought game. It felt like a playoff game. It had the atmosphere of a playoff atmosphere. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe these two teams will meet in the playoffs. Like, who knows? Maybe they will. Because based on how they've been playing so far, I definitely have Golden State going to the playoffs if they are consistent with how they've been playing so far. I mean, they're 9-2 right now. So if they maintain this level of play, I could see them finishing as a top 4, top 3 seed. Let alone if they win plus 55 games, they might end up finishing with the number 1 seed, because last year, if I'm correct, the Oklahoma City Thunder finished at the top of the rankings for the Western Conference, and they only won somewhere between 55 and 58 games. They did not win 60 games. It was somewhere between 55 and 58. So if Golden State is able to replicate that season that the Thunder put on last year and strike between 55 and 58, I can easily see them being a top 3 seed, which is going to be great positioning for the playoffs, for home court advantage until they get to, like the Western Conference Finals, which is the only time they might not be playing home court advantage. But, that's a big if they get that far. But still, like, just if they maintain this level of play, they could really set themselves up for a pretty good, like, deep playoff run, just based on how well they play and what they'll be giving themselves the advantage of, like, what advantages they'll be giving themselves in the future of the playoffs. So
Yeah, I think our ceiling right now, no trades, conference finals at most.
agreed.
It would take something else. We need, like we said earlier, we need a big and we need a second score, like a second option, which those are both really hard to find under the circumstances with the salaries. Warriors really on a budget right now. So it'll have to, but then again though, we did not have a second star player in 2022. So I mean, like, we had a second best player, but we didn't have 2 stars. So maybe Steph doesn't need it. Maybe they just need to be good enough and fill in those gaps, like with the size. Like, we cannot keep having no players over 6'9". Like, we need at least one big, and then we could actually see something. Because especially now with Chet Holmgren being injured, like, I don't know. I think they say he's gonna be out at least 8 weeks. So he has a broken rib, and that's before he can actually exercise at all. So yeah, I don't even think he can practice at that point. I think the practice is gonna be after. Yeah, he can't do anything. So it has to be at least like 3 to 4 months, I'm guessing, before he can actually get in the court. That's a long time. So that significantly changes things. The Nuggets still have Jokic. That's still a problem. No one can defend Jokic. There's not anyone we can get that's going to be able to defend Jokic. So to me, I just feel like that's a loss. Look, I wanted Dwight on the team. But the Warriors wasn't fucking with him. They didn't fuck with him.
Yeah, no, I know that the White doesn't fit their. He doesn't. I mean, I feel like he could still help them, but he doesn't fit their play style at all. But Dwight was the last guy to really give Jokic problems on the defensive end, and that was back in 2020 with the Mickey Mouse ring. But I feel like if the Warriors were to prioritize boosting that front line, getting that interior presence, because that's what they're lacking, that's what they're going to need, especially facing these Western Conference teams with these great front court players that they're facing up against: Nikola, Anthony Davis, Domantas Sabonis, Rudy Gobert, Julius Randle, Chet Holmgren, and there's probably some other guys that I'm forgetting. Alperen Sengun for the Rockets if they have to play the Rockets in the playoffs. Like, there's a lot of good front court players out there in the Western Conference that can really cause problems for the Warriors in terms of size and just the skill that they have at that size, where they're going to get eaten alive. And if they were to try and fix that one hole and try to cover up for that one hole and make it harder for opposing teams in their front courts, and just to make it just more of a challenge by getting one of those kinds of pieces that I listed, those guys that I gave examples of, but they still kept this really nice depth that they have. They have really good depth right now with Moody, with Moses Moody, Jonathan Kuminga, Pajinski, Looney coming off the bench because Draymond realistically is his superior in terms of being in the starting lineup. They have a solid 8 to 9 man rotation right now. You combine that with another key interior piece, a true center that can provide you everything that you need that the team is honestly lacking right now. Rebounding, interior presence, interior defense, glass cleaning, and just securing the paint because that's where their hole is defensively in terms of where they get beat a lot. If they did that but still kept their depth, I would honestly, I would be very, very terrified of the Warriors come postseason if I'm any of the teams in the Western Conference that make the playoffs, because the Warriors will make the playoffs if they continue to play the way they're playing right now. Like, I'm a Rockets fan, and if the Rockets had to face the Warriors right now, let alone if they acquired that piece and still maintain their depth with how they've been playing their depth, how Steve has been using their rotations, and how their guys are looking night in and night out, how every single player on their team, all the way down to the 12th fucking guy, is producing and getting in minutes and getting in plays and putting in effort and making an impact here and there. It would be a nightmare for teams to match up against them. It was just with that culture, that experience, that chemistry, that identity, it would just be it would be a true nightmare to have to face them, especially if you're a team that's like facing them for their first round. Like, imagine if you're let's say the Warriors make the playoffs but don't finish with a very high seed. Let's say they get in at the 6th or the 7th or the 8th seed, and you're the first, second, or third seed. You had a great season, great record, played well, one of the hottest teams in the league, and then you got to face that Golden State Warriors team as your first challenge in the first round. Like, that's
Yeah,
scary. Like,
they're snatching somebody's championship hopes. I'm telling you.
Exactly. They're eliminating somebody with high hopes higher than them out of the playoffs early, with the way they've been playing, and if they fill in that empty piece in the front line at the center slot for the starting position. Like, that would just completely put them over the edge, in my opinion. So.
Oh yeah.
That's just what if I'm management, if I'm the GM, if I'm the team, if I'm the coach, that's what I'm trying to prioritize. Maintain this depth. Don't sacrifice this depth, anything cracking in within the 9-man rotation we already have. And let's try and fill in that center position. That's my priority. If they can execute on that come trade deadline, it's a wrap. It's just a wrap.
Oh yeah. I got a couple tweets before we get out of here that I just wanted to go through because some of this shit is funny. Hold on. Yeah, I have to just go back and roast Luka one more time.
It was such a half-ass screen. Like, you could have gotten inside. I told you this already, Ciara. He could have pressed up. He could have gotten inside positioning. So he's already over the top. He had to fight hard over Draymond's screen. He could have gotten over. Like,
just holding Draymond. What are you doing holding Draymond? Like, bro.
Yeah, that was Luka saying, you know what, fuck this.
You got it.
Lively, you got that. Yeah, you got it. Go get that. Like, bro.
I just thought this was wild. Final 3 minutes and 10 seconds of the game, 12 points. Scored the final 12 points of the game. He's just him. He missed one free throw, but it definitely wasn't in the fourth quarter. Got a little post-game comments from Klay in here.
It hurts to be on the other side of one of his flurries. Guy got hot at the end and made some ridiculous shots. I know I've been on the other end.
Yeah, Klay. Okay, I'm sorry. So, are we confirming he was 1000% saying what we think he was saying? This is my shit now. You didn't want to be here. I'm sorry. Like, and there's some comments from Steph after the game where he was elaborating. The reporter asked him what he said during that part. He said he didn't remember. He probably blacked out. I think he'd be like, just in the zone. So like, he's just like pure expression. Like, and you know what?
Be in the Matrix.
Yeah, they said he's the oldest point guard in NBA history to have back-to-back 30-point games. That's crazy. Steph in the last 200 seconds, 12 points to Mavs 3. That defense was stifling.
Road dog for 13 years, so it's a lot of history. You're gonna have a lot of back and forth. Some of it was competitive, some of it was fun. And thankfully we were all able to focus on the game and just hoop and compete.
Yeah, he said he stayed in the tunnel during the tribute so he wouldn't get emotional. And then Draymond said he pre-watched the tribute so he wouldn't get emotional. So it's like they low-key set Klay up. They low-key set his ass up because it's like they are already seeing it so they can try to control how they feel. And Klay's, he got the fans. They gave the fans the captain hats, the sailor hats. And they were tipping the cap to him before the game.
Down about them tipping no hats.
Actually, it was clearly like a very emotional moment when he's going around there. Are you trying to
For him, yeah, he took it all in. That was great, but that wasn't my moment. That was Klay Thompson's moment. That's for him to get emotional about. I tipped my cap to him when he take me on his boat this summer. Tipped him the cap today.
73 points in his last 2 games with 7 free throws. This is why I say, like, whoever you compare Steph to, just compare their free throw attempts per game to him. He's the highest scorer in history with the least amount of free throws. I'm just saying, like, certain players, I'm not gonna say they need them, but their numbers are definitely inflated, especially in the modern NBA. NBA is padding a lot of the younger star stats, I feel, to try to make them seem like they're more dominant than they really are. Not saying we don't have any young stars that's dominant, right? But they're definitely inflating it. I mean, you can clearly see that just by, look at the ratings. Look at what they did halfway through the season last year, trying to encourage more defense.
Gratitude towards myself and something I will never take for granted. So it was very, very awesome.
Shout out to Klay, man, bro. I really genuinely wish him the best. I really wish him the best, bro. Like, and they said he was going around the Warriors locker room after the game. He was actually hanging out with them, post game with his little hat on. And I'm just like, I wonder if he regrets it. Like, I think his pride, rightfully so, led him to saying, if y'all don't want me, I don't want to be there. Which they tried to offer him a contract at the beginning of the season, to be fair, $24 million a year. He turned it down. And now he's paying for like $18 million a year. So I'm just like, if he wanted to stay, he could have. And I think that's why Steph probably feels the way he felt. Because it's like all of them had this idea, we're going to stay together. We're going to stay together. You're telling me Steph couldn't get you a business deal to make up the rest of the contract? You're telling me that, you know what I'm saying? There's little stuff you can do on the side. You're telling me one of the owners of the team can't get you an investment with whatever company, and then you can make up whatever the difference is if you really want to stay. And I mean, I think that could have happened. They would have pulled strings like that for him, but he didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah, something you gotta remember, Ciara, like, as athletes, one thing that we're always going to prioritize above everything else is, always making sure that no matter what happens at the end of the day, that we have fun when we play this game. You know what I mean? Like, the game is fun for us, and we actually get the chance to enjoy playing the game and enjoy our time, playing the game. And this is the one thing I'm always going to defend Klay on. It's nice to know and to hear about, the plan, essentially, like the plan that Dre and Steph had, where it was going to be them running off into the sunset. We're going to stick together. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna keep competing for championships. Just the 3 of us, all the way to the end. But in that environment, at the time, that environment and just that atmosphere, with what surrounded that organization, with everything that happened, like I said, I'll always bring this up, but going back to the Jordan Poole incident and even the Kevin Durant incident, how that affected, the team throughout all those years, and those incidents, how they affected the team throughout all those years, and that period of time, post the 22 championship year, where the youth of the team was taking hits, and their youth development was taking hits, and just the chemistry of the team was taking hits at the sacrificing that at the expense of trying to keep those guys together, and how it was hitting Klay and hitting Steph at the time, and hitting Draymond. It just wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun for certain guys anymore, and Klay just happened to be one of those guys.
But they've all said that they understood. Like, Klay said it, Draymond said it. They all understood. why he wanted to leave.
And again,
And
if
it's
that's
best for
if
him.
they, it is. And at the end of the day, if they do, like if they truly do understand that that was just what he needed to do and that was what's best for him to be happy, and they understood what the situation was, if they understand all those things and still are still like
You can
upset
feel
and
multiple ways about it. I think that's perfectly
yeah,
normal. Like, what we both want the same thing, but it's not best for either party. It wasn't best for them because their whole chemistry and their whole culture got compromised, right? And he was weighing the team down. And then for him, it's like being that close to everything you built probably at this point in his career wasn't the best. So it's like I think it works out for both of them because he gets to go have less pressure, play a different role, not be haunted by his past glory, and then they can move on. And he's on a contender too. I mean, I think the Mavs are still somewhat a contender. So it kind of, I think it worked out the best way it could, but I think they still feel like, damn, we all said we were going to finish this shit together. Maybe 3 years from now, he comes back after this deal and finishes with them. Who knows?
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. They stated multiple times they knew what was going on, so I'm not mad.
And Steph tried. He tried. Like Klay, they reported Klay asked Steph not to go to the front office to try to use his weight to get him a better deal. He did it anyway. He did it anyway. But it's like clearly they wanted it to stay. But you know what? I think for Klay, I wonder if in the back of his mind he regrets it after seeing the fans. After, like, I think the front office, I don't think there's too much Klay Thompson could ask for in a contract. But I also understand how the salary cap works. So it's kind of like, I feel like he's priceless. Whatever he asks for, he deserves it. But at the same time, Klay also, as much as he built it up, he was also a factor in his career turning out this way. Like the first injury was something he couldn't control. The second one was kind of his fault. Like he said it was his fault. Like his not going with the proper timeline of recovery caused him to get the second injury. So it's like he's probably so frustrated with himself. It's just seeping into everything else. And it's like the vibes, he looks happy. I'm happy to see Klay look happy. I didn't want to see him like that, you know? And it's like, if that's him being on the team was causing him to feel that way, I'd rather him just not be on the team because it's like, I don't want to see him not enjoy basketball. It seemed like he wasn't enjoying basketball anymore. And that was like hard to see after looking at how much happiness and joy he had his whole career. It's like, damn, bro, it's like he's being haunted, you know, by his past self. But hopefully on the Mavs, like, I just hope they don't start like scapegoating Klay. Okay, he's your third best player. I don't want to see him getting a scapegoat unless he's going like 0 for 20 or something. You got bigger problems beyond Klay because like he did exactly what he should do tonight, and still the team was I mean, it's in the best player's hands at the end of the day.
Yep.
There's only so much he can do. So I just hope they don't start trying to like, oh, this is Klay's fault. Like, no, you're having the same issues you've had with Jalen Brunson on the team. And look at how good Jalen Brunson is. And so I don't know if they need a coaching change. I don't know if there's any coach they could bring in that Luka will listen to, because it's like players get coaches fired these days. So I want to say maybe they need a new coach to change the offense, take the ball out of his hands. But players these days have so much power to where I don't even know if you could pull that off without the coach getting fired. If Luka doesn't want it, the team kind of just has to play that way. It's like he needs to start using his gravity like Steph. I mean, he's not as fast, but it's like you're telling me you can't. Well, you know what? Now that I think about it, his usage is so high. If he had, even if the usage dropped a little bit, if he still had high usage and played off ball, he doesn't have the stamina to do that.
Yeah.
So that's essentially what the problem is. But that's it from us. Y'all make sure y'all go sub to Barrett. His channel's going to be in the title. You could just click it, go sub. More content coming from him. This was a good game.
Sure.
We will be doing another pod. I don't know when. At some point. Maybe this weekend. Maybe not. I don't know. But more games coming soon. I'm excited to keep watching this season. you know, we'll come back for some updates and any other big games. We might be back to like do some breakdowns. But make sure you guys leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Sub to the sports channel. I do have a video idea I'm gonna start working on soon related to Steph Curry. Spoiler alert, it's about Steph Curry's 62-point game versus Dame, which I just saw a clip of Dame actually talk about that game. So I have to put that together. That's his most underrated game. But look,
Yeah.
that's it for me, you guys. Appreciate y'all checking out that video. But until next time, we're out.